Hey, what's going on, my friends, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Victor, and today's video is going to share with you 5 things I think you should know about the upcoming full moon on August 9th, 2025. It's a very wonderful time of upgrade. It's a time of transition into a new place in your life. A new chapter is being born because there's a new you that's come online. It doesn't always seem like it in the moment, but all that shadow work, all that inner work, all the leaps of faith you take guided from within eventually start to pay off. And like some things in life, it can kind of happen all at once. It reminds me of the sunflower plant. Sunflower plants are pretty big, for big presents, you might say. They can get like 6, maybe 10 feet high. I'm not sure exactly. But I know their growth starts off very slowly. And just imagine a little bitty seed, very fragile. And eventually, maybe after a couple of weeks of germination or whatever, it sprouts up a little bit and it's like this little bitty thing. And this can go on for quite a while. But then there is a threshold that is met where it all of a sudden transitions into like the bloom phase where it just literally shoots up. And it's a very exciting thing to watch. And it might have seemed like nothing was happening prior to that, but it was happening. It was preparing itself. It was gathering all the nutrients, all the strength, whatever it needs to finally take off and shoot up. And I find that spiritual growth is very similar to that, where it's a lot of work. You are in kind of a tender, fragile, sensitive place for a lot longer than you would prefer or choose. But then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, you find yourself sort of lifting up and experiencing in rapid succession the fruits of your labor. And August 9th feels a lot like that type of threshold, that type of turning point. It's a good time to really start to sort of yield, you might say, things that you've been striving for so long that you may have thought would never happen. For example, on my spiritual journey, for the longest time, I had no friends. A lot of my previous friends had kind of fallen away. And though I had my family, I found myself really wanting friends, guy friends, people I could like call up and just kind of like, mess around with and go out with. But for many, many years, it was just me and the kids and my wife. And I felt very, very lonely. But as I kind of looked around, I didn't see anybody who I could imagine myself being friends with. I had yet to really meet anybody, who I think would vibe with. So I came to this acceptance that I'm just not going to have any friends. And then all of a sudden, one day out of the blue, I got an email from this guy named Aaron Dowdy. We hopped on the call. And then within like maybe a year, I had not only him as a very close soul brother, but many, many other cool friends just sort of kind of popped into my life. So it's that type of vibe, my friend, not only particularly with friends, but in general. There might be something that's really meaningful to you. Maybe you've been trying to meet your partner. Maybe you've been trying to get your business off the ground. Maybe you've been trying to move out of a location and a life situation that's not been working for you. And it's been going on for a long time. And there's been a lot of inner work and things you've been working through, but it's not panning out. It's not really yielding you anything worthwhile. Well, this is the time, my friend, where things finally can pan out, even if you had lost hope. So anyways, before I get too ahead of myself, let me go ahead now and break this down into 5 more specific themes for the full moon on August 9th. Theme number 1, letting go and moving on to the next phase. This is not always easy. It's very common to become quite attached to a particular phase of life, a theme you're playing out, a chapter in your life, especially on the tail end when you've been doing it for a long time. It becomes very comfortable, very familiar. It's all you know. Many times your current identity can literally be intimately connected with it, but nothing stays the same. We've all have learned that even if you're like 10, 12 years old, you realize things just don't stay the same here on planet Earth in this reality we find ourselves dwelling in. But nonetheless, most of us resist that change. And what comes to mind is this guy named, I'm getting ahead of myself. But the point I want to make here is the next phase could also be pretty dope. I know you don't know it's good. There's no security yet, but it could be pretty cool. But in order to get to that next potentially interesting phase of your life, you do have to let go of the first one, which is not easy. And I see it all the time, unfortunately, with mixed martial artists. I'm a big fan of the UFC. And if you watch, whether you're into it or not, you could probably understand that the career of a top-level mixed martial artist is very short. The competition is high. It's a global sport now. It's huge. And there are people that are starting to train from a very early age. And just the physical body combined with like the experience level provides a very short-lived peak. When you're at a peak level of like wisdom and experience combined with still having that physical prowess and ability to compete with like these young, hungry lions. And anyway, the career is always very short. And what you see a lot of times, because these martial artists are just so dedicated, when they start to kind of fade, you can see it. You can see they can't take punches as well. You see their cardio start to decline. You see they're just a little bit slower, a little bit more timid. And unfortunately, a lot of fighters still hang on. They don't retire, even though like all the signs are kind of indicating that they probably should. Because they don't know who they're going to be. They don't know what's next. They're afraid of that next phase. This is who I am. I'm a fighter. Who am I? Who am I without this? So they hang on and they get their asses kicked over and over. They get knocked out and eventually they're forced to retire. But they've kind of like resisted the transition. But not all fighters do this. Some of them retire in their prime as a champion, as a legend, and then go on to do other cool things. This dude I just watched, Dustin Poirier, he fought his last fight. He lost. It was a really good fight, but he made the choice to retire. He's still in his prime, almost in my opinion. He put his gloves down, and then a week later I saw on Instagram that, he's going to become a UFC commentator. How cool would that be? I've gone through this with my children. One of the things I've experienced throughout my years is becoming like sad as I've watched them grow and how quickly kids grow. You know, there was a phase of my life as a parent when my kids were just really young and sweet and kind of follow me around, and I could make them laugh very easily, and they're like my biggest fans. But there comes a point where like all of a sudden it's like natural where they want to become like autonomous. They want to like do their own thing, and no longer is daddy super funny and he's not as cool anymore. Just kidding. But so anyway, they start spending more time in their room and wanting to hang out with their friends and things like that. And you know, when this would happen, I have 3 kids, I've been through it. I would get sad. I would feel like I'm losing something. And in a sense, I am. At the same time, now that they are older, I get to have really cool conversations with them. I get to really experience who they're becoming as a person. And it's so fascinating to me. I'm so grateful for these different personalities that are just sort of blossoming in my life. You know, my daughter's 16, she's almost driving, and she's very intelligent. She calls me out on my stuff, and it's like, whoa, all of a sudden, she's not daddy's little girl who just blindly does whatever daddy does. She's like her own person who can see through me a little bit, and I respect that. But anyway, even though I have had to let go of one part of being a parent, there's a new one that's now here in great abundance that's also cool. And of course, that will transition. And that's kind of how life goes, my friend. But it's a time to really just go with the flow of life. And it can seem like things are moving fast, and there is a reorientation phase, I would say, where you kind of like redefine yourself in this new chapter, but all of it's natural. Resisting that doesn't work. It sort of like disrupts what could be a natural, harmonious flowing through the many awesome varieties that life has to offer. It's not wise to cling on to any one particular thing, whether it's your youth, whether it's your career, whether it's whatever. It's like, let's just see what life has to offer me next and just trust it might be pretty dope. Number 2, around this time, you might find yourself craving a deeper sense of purpose. You know, we can go through life, and many people are becoming quite self-aware, and you can start to sense when there's something missing. Like, you know what I figured this out over here. My relationships, knock on wood, pretty good right now. Why do I find myself longing for something? Like there's something internal that is not being fulfilled. And a lot of times this can come down to a sense of purpose. And what comes to mind for me is the first time once I started to make a good living, you could say, for my business. And when I started my business many years ago, I was in credit card debt. I was living in a freaking travel trailer. I was grinding, working hard with the sole aim of being able to have financial freedom for the benefit of myself and my family. And there came a point where I had reached that, beyond where I could have ever even expected or wanted to go, to the point where I didn't really have to work all that much. I didn't really have to do anything for a while. And I found myself not doing anything for a while. And around that time, my kids finally went back to school. During COVID, we were homeschooling them for a couple of years. And it all kind of culminated where I hit this certain level, this new level of financial success, you could say. And then my kids went off to school. I had nothing to do at work. The kids were gone. And I found myself one day just sitting in my living room. And for the first time ever, I noticed I could hear the hum of the refrigerator. And I thought, oh my God, it was so depressing. I felt what the hell am I going to do now? I had made it. I had gotten to where I wanted to go. And I was unhappy. Now, am I just being an ungrateful, spoiled little brat? You might say, maybe. But what I discovered is that just because I got to a place of being comfortable, that's not all there is to life. Even though you could maybe argue for thousands of years that was the sole aim, and few humans ever achieved it. Now we're living in a time of comfortability, even for anybody, even for people who are still sort of struggling. We're more comfortable than ever before as a race, as a society, as human beings. And I think I'm not alone here when, even though things on paper might be okay, there is something missing. And for me, what I discovered, it was a purpose. I stopped creating. I stopped doing. I stopped taking my inspired ideas and translating them into something. And once I started doing that, even though I no longer had to for financial reasons, it completely gave me it filled up that cup within myself that was missing, this sense of purpose. Now, I know some of you might already know this. I know I need a sense of purpose, Vic. But here's my problem, bro. I don't know what it is. How do you find it? That's not easy. It can take some time. It took me time. And what I've learned, just to share real quick, is there is not one purpose. But there is always a next thing, a next move to make. A lot of times we want to have the whole map drawn out for us. And it will be in due time, but not all at one time. It's like a step-by-step thing. And most people will find themselves kind of like listless and I don't know what to do. I could almost guarantee you right now, one thing you might do. One option, one card you have not yet played. And you don't know if it's going to fulfill you. You don't know if that card's your purpose. You don't know. But there's a card. And you know what it is. And what I've learned is just to play that card. And you know what? If you get lucky, blackjack or whatever, you bam. You succeed. A lot of times it's not that first card. It's not the second card or the fifth card. But as long as you have a card to play, and you always do, you're going to be learning lessons. You're going to be gathering data. You're going to be finding more and more and more of yourself. You're going to be moving forward. Finding your purpose is not this stationary achievement that you are good once you fill your cup and then you never drink from it. So you keep drinking from it. You got to keep filling it. You keep filling it by progressing. And you progress by just doing the next intuitive thing, the next obvious thing, the next commonsensical thing you have not done for whatever reason. And through that journey, you'll have many purposes. You'll find many outlets for your creative energy. Most importantly, you'll be living a good, happy life. Number 3, you might also find yourself craving community, whether you know it or not. This could also be something that you feel is missing in your life. And what I've learned is that Most people are too busy for friends nowadays. And this also happened to me. After I refound my purpose, you could say, I found myself once again feeling in a very similar way. Once again confused. I got everything I want. What's missing? And I realized, oh, I'm lonely. I'm lonely. There was a time when I had a lot more friends, a lot more going on. I was running retreats and spending a lot of quality time with like my soul family. And all of a sudden, I wasn't doing them anymore and found myself kind of lonely. So I put myself out there. I started calling up my friends. I started taking action and being proactive. You know, community is a huge component to health even. In fact, my friends and I just got back from Costa Rica in this Playa Guiones area near Nosara in Costa Rica. And it's one of, I think, the 5 or 6 blue zones. I'm not sure if you know what a blue zone is. A blue zone is a little pocket, a little location on the planet where the life expectancy is like noticeably longer. People live a lot longer in these blue zones. There's a whole cool Netflix documentary that I watched a little while ago. I'm not sure if it's there anymore. But it was this person and researcher who was trying to identify what about these blue zones made people live longer. And there were some commonalities: food quality, healthy, simple diet, movement. The people in the blue zones move and they walk a lot. Even places where people drink wine and do things that you would think are bad, these other influences compensated big time. But one of the main things was community. In fact, I think there's this one area in Italy where like they don't eat healthy, you know, they're drinking wine almost every day, eating pasta, stuff like that, but they're moving and they're eating their pasta and drinking their wine together. They're with their brothers, their sisters, their family, their friends, and there's this constant energy of being a part of something bigger than yourself. And I was able to experience this luckily just recently in Costa Rica. I went out there with some friends and we drank plant medicine, and it was so nourishing, so fulfilling. And I realized how important that is, and how even me, as with what I said, I could do more. I could take more action to put myself out there. And I know some of you spiritual seekers right now have like no friends like I did. That's okay. For you, I'll tell you what, getting into your purpose, that will help. I just saw a little snippet of one of my friend Aaron Dowdy's videos, and he was talking about this. He's a big YouTuber, almost 1.8 million followers on YouTube. He's my best friend basically. And he was saying that he was like me. He had no friends basically until he started making YouTube videos, until he started sharing his real self with the world, which many people hold back. Many people are still being reinforced by their old environment, and it's reinforcing this old identity, causing them to be lonely only because their true friends out there don't know they exist. They don't know that it's an option because you're not being yourself. You're not living your purpose. So that's a big, these 2 points here are very much connected. If you have no friends, I recommend you want friends, you start being yourself more. Showing up each and every day as the true you, whether your parents are going to judge you, whether your friends and family are going to think you're a wacko or not. You got to be yourself. If you expect your soul brothers and sisters to discover you. Number 4, if you feel lost with all this, it's a good time to follow the signs, the synchronicity, the omen, the little nudges that spirit will sometimes give you. It's a time where you might feel more guided than usual. This kind of happened to me recently. I found myself, if you notice, some of you who've been following me, I haven't made a YouTube video in a little while, a couple months maybe. And I was trying to decide if it's still authentic for me to do so. So as I was deciding, I wasn't making videos because it felt kind of inauthentic, honestly. And then the more distance that grew between me and my YouTube channel, the more I started to find people coming up to me and telling me they like my videos and things like that. I was just coming home from Costa Rica and some dude on the plane just passed me and was like, "Yo, bro." He gave me like one of those knuckles, and that happened. And the day before that, I was talking to this shaman friend of mine, and he was saying that we missed your videos, Vic. And I've been getting people coming up and sort of like, almost like wondering, like, why don't you make them anymore? Like, where have you been? I don't know if you're aware that these are helpful to people. Like, why don't you do them? And I was like, oh, okay. And it was like the universe threw all these different synchronicities, and people were saying, like, you ought to do this. You ought to do this. And I'm happy to be here. I really am. Thank you for your patience, with me and my channel and my sometimes sporadic nature of filming videos. But nonetheless, I was able to kind of be put back on track just by being told sometimes from the outside of what to do. So what has life been trying to tell you? The problem with these synchronicities is sometimes they'll conflict with like a belief we have in our heads. Sometimes it's like a false belief that blocks us from the obvious. Like for me, what I sometimes would wonder is I would find that there's like probably a small percentage of people that watch my videos that I honestly don't think they're helping. I know I went through a phase where I was doing nothing but watching YouTube videos. I was obsessed with the latest energy update, what's going to happen this month. I was giving my power away, wasting my time, doing nothing to improve my life. But these YouTube videos would fill me up a little bit with like this temporary like boost, but it wouldn't translate into anything. And I would find that there are people who I could gather are experiencing it in that same way. And it caused me to question, is this actually doing any good? But then, as I said, life was showing me all these other types of odd people in my audience that are like, yeah, it's doing a lot of good, bro. And I realized that I had this idea that this little percentage of people that I just described doesn't necessarily encompass my entire audience, just maybe a small fraction. And I'm doing a disservice to all the other people because this like sort of unexamined myopic way of looking at the situation, which of course is much more complex than that. So that's me. What about you? I hear it all the time. Victor, I would love to do this, but my wife, Patty, a long time ago when we were going through our addiction counseling and things like that, 20 years ago plus, she had this therapist, and she would always say to Patty, everything past but is bullshit. I would love to start a business, but what? But nothing. Bullshit. Excuse. Not empirically true necessarily. So what's your but? What's stopping you from doing the next thing? It's a good time to become aware of that and to like question that. And the universe might be kind of helping you by giving you other perspectives, other ways of looking at this belief, hopefully dissolving it and waking you up to the fact that you're free. You're free to do as you please. You're free to move about reality based upon what's real and authentic to you. You don't have to let your mind, what you were taught to believe, hold you down if you don't choose to give those beliefs too much power. And maybe take the time to kind of question them and ask yourself, do I actually agree with what I've been saying? Do I actually agree with what I've been telling myself in my head? When you take the time to really look at it, you might find that, no, I don't. It doesn't really make any sense at all. And finally, number 5, it's going to sound a little weird, but I'll explain it. It's very important, actually. Embracing other versions of yourself. What? Yes. I'm reading this cool book right now to kind of paint a picture by, his name is Robert Johnson. He's a Carl Jungian analyst. Awesome dude, really good at breaking down Carl Jung, sometimes difficult to comprehend, teaching into like a more digestible form. So I've read several of this dude's books. Anyway, this one in particular is about dream interpretation, and he's talking about how the unconscious will communicate to us through dreams, and the unconscious has its own language. You might know it. It's symbols. The unconscious won't just tell you, hey, your job's not right for you, you should quit. It will express itself symbolically. And anyway, this particular chapter of the book was talking about how there are different like people. Most of us, at some point anyway, have people show up in our dreams. It could be your mom, it could be a grandmother, it could be a stranger, it could be some whatever. All of these different people are in our dreams. But the dream, what this anyway, the consensus is with dream analysts currently anyway, is that these other people in your dreams don't necessarily mean these other people. They're literally versions of you, aspects of your psyche. And we have it all. There's a part of me that's greedy. Oh, I don't want to admit that. It's true. There's a part of me that's there. A part of me that's very indulgent. There's a part of me that is very compassionate. There's a part of me that's terrified, like a little scared, fragile little baby child. There's a part of me that's courageous. All these different things. There are versions of my psyche that Carl Jung and this other dude, they call archetypes that we are connected to. Why? Because we're human beings, because we're born from this collective. We are all connected to everything that's ever been within the collective unconscious. We have the ability to access it. But here's the problem, and here's why I'm saying this. Many times we find ourselves, for one, forgetting all of that, forgetting just how vast we actually are, and find ourselves in a particular little baby life situation with certain things that continue to play out that reinforce only one or two little versions of ourselves. And then we forget all the rest of us and go through falsely believing this is all I am. I'm just a scaredy cat. I'm one who tries things and fails. That's who I am. That's all I am. No, nonsense. Many people like to speak of this global awakening taking place on the planet, and I feel it. But I don't think everyone realizes that it's happening inside of them. It's happening inside of your mind. It's happening inside of your consciousness. And one aspect of that is realizing just how big you really are. Just how much more to you there actually is. And when you realize that you can tap in, you can call in more of you, all the parts you want. What do you need right now in your life? More patience, maybe, probably a lot of you. More courage, more confidence. Great, because there's a version of you that's freaking doing nothing but sitting around patiently nonstop. There's a part of you that's a Viking freaking warrior that has courage. There's all these parts of yourself. And what can help is to step back and turn, instead of to your external world to find out who you are. And it'll keep telling you, you're this limited little version of yourself. You turn inward. You meditate. You dream, you contemplate, you envision, you intend, you gather your inner resources, and then you have the power. At the very least, you have the awareness that the power's already been there. And then all of a sudden, ideas start opening up for you. I remember I went through this back in 2016. I found myself in a spot where I had all these dreams. I was living in Michigan at the time, running a personal training gym. I didn't want any of that. I had no friends. What I wanted was friends. I wanted to live in San Diego. I wanted to have an online business where I could help people in a spiritual sense. But here I was in this little life of mine, and I felt trapped. I felt like I don't know how I could possibly do this. Every time I even try any of these things, it feels hopeless. And I found myself in this sort of victim mentality, just sort of resentful at the universe for putting me in this spot where I had all these big dreams that felt so real to me, but seemed so impossible. And it was at that time that I also started to kind of step back and go inward and do some inner healing work and really realize that there's more to me than I thought. And I started just testing. I started playing around. I stopped putting all my focus into all the reasons why I'm stuck. And I started putting at least some of that focus into what might I do to break free of this circumstance? What can I do? Many people don't ever do that. They fixate on why they're stuck. And therefore they create that exact reality, reinforcing not the true potential, but their beliefs in their potential, but in their faith in their lack of possibilities. What if you put all that energy, or at least a small amount of it, into what if? And I started doing that. I said, what could I do? You want to get to San Diego, big shot? You want to be a YouTuber, bro? What could you do? What could you do today? And for about a week, I thought like that. I just opened up my mind to the possibilities. And one of the things that popped in my head was you could sell your entire house and all your belongings and have just enough money to buy a little travel trailer. And then you could live very cheaply out there in San Diego and have a little bit of time to figure out the online thing. Okay, done. We did it. We packed up in a few weeks, had a big garage sale, sold our house. The very weekend it went up on the market. A week later, we were gone. About a month later, we were gone, living in San Diego. What's next? Okay. And I just lived like that. I realized that there are so many options. We are never stuck. We only believe we're stuck. So now's the time to really just open up your mind to the possibilities of who you are, these different versions of yourself, but also just knowing that there's an answer to your prayers out there, but you have to be willing to look for it. And you're not going to find it in the old situation, in the old patterns, in the old you. But this full moon is very powerful. It's going to kind of, through synchronicity, through craving of something more, it's going to cause you to start setting your sights on more. Because you are more. You've earned this, just like that sunflower plant. You don't need to stay little anymore. And I know it's kind of a big change going from this little plant to a big-ass plant in a very short span of time, but that's like what you've earned. It's like you have this for you. It's like the only thing that might happen is you're like stopping yourself, but you don't have to stop yourself anymore. I don't think you'll be able to stop yourself anymore. This full moon is going to nudge you into your fully expressed, expanded self and the life that goes along with it. You've earned it. It's time to cash in, my friend. You've done the work. With that said, I hope you enjoyed this, my friends. Real quick, for anybody who's interested, on August 18th, my friend Aaron Dowdy and I, another YouTuber who I mentioned, we're doing a free 3-day virtual event for people who want to learn to do what we do, which is have a spiritual online business. Someone who wants to take their calling and learn how to put it online and make a living for it, helping people in a way that they think is super dope and cool. That's a possibility. And this 3-day event, you're going to be hearing from me, hearing from Aaron, and many of our past students who we've shown and who are doing this exact same thing. So this is something that's calling to you. This is maybe one way you can like explore your purpose. It's a free event. I'll leave a link at the very top of the description. Check it out if you'd like. With that said, great to be here, my friends. I'll see you next time. God bless. Peace.